we've been diving into all the connections between Hidden Road and major players in finance, and it's pretty fascinating. Ever since the Ripple acquisition, Hidden Road has been growing fast, really fast. But here's the thing, this connection between Hidden Road and Ripple goes way beyond just an acquisition. It was a smart strategic move, and it's all tied to tokenization. Here's where it gets even more interesting. We know that XRP and the XRP Ledger, XRPL, are going to play a huge role in this. How do we know? Well, it's actually pretty clear. If you head over to Ripple's website and click on the tokenization link right on the front page, it takes you to a breakdown of how they're using the XRP Ledger for tokenization. And it's all right there. XRP and the XRPL are central to the bigger picture with Hidden Road. Before we dive into the juicy details of this acquisition, let's take a moment to go over a few key points. First up, check out this post from Matthew Lenoy. Hidden Road has joined the ICMA, International Capital Market Association. The race to digitally transform global capital markets is officially on. And honestly, this comes as no surprise. We've been talking about the growing connections to tokenization for a while now. Even the SEC has stepped in to say, hey, we're all in on supporting tokenization in a big way. It's clear that tokenization is shaping up to be the next big revolution. When you've got big players like the SEC getting on board, it's clear the US market is opening up in a big way. But let's talk about the new ICMA members joining in June 2025. Check out these names. First up, we've got the First International Bank of Israel. Then there's Franklin Templeton, who's been on a tokenization spree. They've already surpassed 800 million. Pretty impressive, right? Next, there's Hidden Road, SMBC, and of course, a few other big names, including Wells Fargo. So we're talking about major banks, big asset management companies, and then there's Hidden Roads. Pretty interesting, right? On this side, you've got the ICMA FinTech Advisory Committee and all the related groups they're working with. Here's the lineup: the FinTech Advisory Committee, the Common Domain Model Steering Committee, the DLT Bonds Working Group, the Bond Data Taxonomy Working Group, the Electronic Trading Working Group, and even the Artificial Intelligence and Capital Markets Working Group. That's quite the roster. And then check this out. They've even got FinTech directories. It's wild to see how much is covered here. For example, there's the ICMA Distributed Ledger Technology Regulatory Directory, which is super specific. At the bottom, you'll find focus areas like DLT, blockchain, and bond market. This really shows us where things are headed. We know blockchain and DLT are going to be integrated into almost every financial market out there. And when that happens, all the assets traded in these markets will move on chain. That's how we get to 24/7/365 trading. No downtime, no delays. I wanted to point this out because Hidden Road became a partner with the DTCC back on March 11th this year, just 1 month before the Ripple acquisition. The focus here was on Hidden Road joining the netting system of the Government Securities Division of FIC. Starting on trade date Friday, March 14th, 2025, firms involved in services under the Government Securities Division of Fixed Income Clearing Corporation will see Hidden Road Partners, Civis LLC, participating. Let's talk about Hidden Road and why it's such a big deal. The key here is that the DTCC is making major moves on chain, and we've recently seen some exciting updates from them, which I'll dive into shortly. But first, let's take a quick look at what the DTCC is all about. This is their full 2024 report, and it's packed with some mind-blowing info. For starters, it highlights their total revenue and other stats. But here's the big thing. They're talking about tokenization in a major way throughout this report. Now, check this out. Up at the top, they break down the total value of securities processed, and it's absolutely massive. We're talking quadrillions of dollars. In 2024, they processed 3.8 quadrillion. Just 2 years ago, in 2022, it was 2.5 quadrillion. Then in 2023, it jumped to 3 quadrillion, and now 3.8 quadrillion. Just imagine when everything moves on chain, how quickly things will scale because of how fast settlements will happen. Think about the amount of money flowing globally right now. For example, the DTCC is already moving and settling 3.8 quadrillion. That's massive. If we take a closer look, we can see things like accelerated settlement and affirmation rates. And the ecosystem is evolving too. Digital assets are becoming a big part of it. You can even dive deeper into what they're doing with digital assets. And it's clear they're fully embracing tokenization in a major way. We've been talking about tokenization for a while now, but seeing it in action is amazing. They're also pushing for modernization on a whole new level. Honestly, it's wild to think We don't even need to speculate anymore. This space is on track to grow 10x or even 100x bigger than it is today. This is a name handling a staggering 3.8 quadrillion per year. And that number just keeps growing. They're fully modernizing and upgrading their backend systems with DLT and blockchain technology. Plus, we already know they're partnered with Hidden Road, which could even connect to Ripple now that Hidden Road has been acquired by them. But wait, there's more. The DTCC just announced they've surpassed 100 trillion in assets under custody. Yep, you read that right. 100 trillion as of June 18th. And here's another interesting update. This ties into the FIC. Let's take a step back. There's now a new participant in the netting system for the Government Securities Division of the FICC. Big news from the FICC. On July 2nd, it hit an incredible milestone, processing a record-breaking 11.8 trillion in daily volume, though technically this was all processed on June 30th. Pretty wild, right? And if that wasn't exciting enough, there's another huge update from the DTCC. As part of the Great Collateral Experiment, we pulled off a crypto-negative derivatives trade in Tokyo, backed by USDC, a digital cash equivalent. This experiment showed off some serious innovations in collateral app chains, interoperability, automation, and institutional readiness. You've probably heard the news. USDC is now live on the XRP Ledger. Pretty exciting stuff, right? I wanted to bring this up because I know some people might jump to conclusions and say, oh no, they're using USDC, so Ripple must be done for. But that's not the case at all. This is just an experiment. And the fact that it was executed successfully is what really matters. Plus, they used USDC and it worked like a charm. Yeah, I just wanted to share this because it shows how deeply the DTC is getting involved with crypto now. We're talking about a crypto derivatives trade here. This ties into the recent announcement from Finality, which worked with the DTCC to showcase how on-chain settlement of central bank reserves can unlock the full potential of institutional tokenized assets. All of this is part of the DTCC's Digital Launchpad initiative. They even announced their path to digital asset adoption as part of this program, which is such a big step forward. For this, they used USDC, but honestly, I think this could work with almost any digital asset like ROUSD or pretty much any stablecoin out there. It's pretty exciting to see a major player like the DTCC stepping into the blockchain space using crypto assets and diving into tokenization. These are things we've been talking about for years. Seeing them make this move really shows we're transitioning from the we're so early phase to a point where things are about to take off fast. A company as big as the DTCC launching something like this is a big deal, and it's definitely something to pay attention to. Now let's connect this back to Hidden Road. Just recently at a Singapore press conference, huge thanks to Paul Barron for covering this. Brad Garlinghouse announced that Ripple's stablecoin ROUSD will be accepted as collateral for all services at Hidden Road. This is big news. ROUSD is the first stablecoin designed for efficient, large-scale cross-marginal trading between virtual assets and traditional markets, and it's available 24/7 all year long. And speaking of big moves, let's circle back to the DTCC for a moment. Let's take a closer look at what's happening here. They used USDC, which is awesome. But let's talk about ROUSD for a second. It's probably the only stablecoin in this space that's specifically designed for institutional players. And that's a big deal. Why does that matter? Well, the DTCC is an institutional player, and even Finality falls into that category. All these moves involving major names are focused on institutions, and ROUSD fits right into that space. Now, I'm not saying ROUSD is going to be the only successful stablecoin out there, but I do think it deserves to be seen in a different light compared to USDC or most other stablecoins. ROUSD operates on a whole other level. The best part for XRP holders, we're getting exposure to almost all of this. Why? Because USDC can be easily settled and moved on the XRP Ledger for transactions like these. But here's the craziest part. DTCC has officially gone live with crypto NetViv derivatives. This is something we've been talking about for years, since 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. And today it's finally a reality. Now, let's add to this exciting news. At the Singapore press conference with Brad Garlinghouse, we also got some amazing insights. Ripple's senior director of engineering explained collateralized lending on the XRP Ledger. It's clear now that Hidden Road was a strategic acquisition. Seriously, take a look at this.
What do we do next? What other value could this drive? So I think that this is where some cool things are. collateralized lending is pretty cool. So just to give you an example of what this part is, imagine if, again, capital efficiency here, you're a company who wants to be able to put through 20 million, 30 million. I see this a lot in startups. Is like you can make this unit economics make sense up to a limit, and as soon as you start hitting the bounds of actually the cash that you have on hand, cash starts becoming really important. If you can't actually move this through, what you actually want to do is go through people like prime brokers. What they do, and actually what you can do here, you can deposit assets so you will not have to liquidate them. You can actually get loans that collateralizes off that. So if I wanted to do $5 million in trading and payments, if I had $1 million in Bitcoin, $1 million in XRP, and I was able to hold that without actually having to sell it and to trade it, and then being able to be lend off that, and then having this settlement process where you can actually recycle it. This is a really, really strong thing. And again, this is why prime brokers exist. This is their business model. I think being able to do this on chain, I think this is pretty cool. And for me, if you have the payments network with the rails, this is what OTC desks cannot do. They can have FX, they can do this quickly. They can even give you some collateral. They don't do third-party payouts. So for me, combining these things together, I think this is pretty cool. This is a new model.
All right, let's take a look at what's on the screen right now. We're talking about some seriously exciting developments on the XRP Ledger: collateralized lending, programmable escrow, enterprise-level treasury and liquidity management, multi-currency optimization using on-chain FX, real-time balance routing, and tokenized real-world assets. Oh, and let's not forget private markets, FX with compliance rails for tokenized securities, debt, and commodity. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Let's circle back to the DTCC. They're currently settling a mind-blowing 3.8 quadrillion in securities. And guess what their next big move is? Yep, they're working on bringing securities on chain. They're diving into DLT and tokenization at scale, just as Ripple acquires Hidden Road. And guess what? Back on March 11th, Hidden Road landed a partnership with the DTCC. Now we're seeing tokenized securities coming to the XRP Ledger, along with a full breakdown of what's being unlocked with their permission decks. Honestly, it all feels like it's lining up perfectly. And I'm not one to believe in coincidences here. Personally, I think Ripple and XRP are going to play a huge role in these big moves we're seeing unfold. Sure, some people might doubt it and say, no way. It's funny how things turn out sometimes. Remember when people said Ripple would never try to become a bank? Then, surprise, they went ahead and applied for a banking license. And the same folks who insisted the case would drag on forever, well, guess what? Ripple withdrew its appeal, and now we're just waiting on the SEC to do the same. Once that happens, the case is done. It's interesting how some people out there still say, no way, this won't happen, or I don't believe it. Everyone's talking about it, and for good reason. The Hidden Road acquisition is a game changer for XRP's utility, and it's been highlighted multiple times by Smokedog. When you think about it, the strategic motivations behind this move make perfect sense. Ripple is aiming to position itself as a major player in institutional finance, and this step gets them closer to that goal. With this acquisition, Ripple is setting the stage to offer services in trading, custody, financing, and clearing for hedge funds and big financial institutions. It's exciting to see how this could supercharge XRP's utility and open up new possibilities. When you look at what's happening on the XRP Ledger right now, it's clear things are evolving fast. The focus has shifted from small-scale retail activity, which has been the norm for years, to big institutional DeFi offerings. This is a huge step toward becoming a key part of the global financial system. You see, for example, there's already a plan in place to use the XRP Ledger to scale the ROUSD stablecoin, which Hidden Road uses as collateral, and to integrate post-trade activity into Ripple payments. Honestly, I'm super excited about this. It feels like we're watching something big unfold, and it's directly tied to major players like the DTCC, who we already have ties to. I'm super focused on this right now, and I'm also keeping an eye on some of the other connections we have, like with the ICMA and the ISDA, which Ripple joined back in the summer of 2023, if I'm remembering right. These connections are a big deal and they shouldn't be overlooked. They're still so important, especially now as we're seeing markets start to shift on chain. Big players like the DTCC are making moves on chain too, which is huge. Honestly, this feels like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I truly believe that the retail sector involved in this space right now, the ones staying patient, avoiding frustration, and playing the long game, will be the new 1%. Those of us who are here early, even before regulations are fully in place, are going to see some amazing rewards down the line. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more free content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.